I do solemnly swear that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and support the Constitution thereof. So help me God. I do solemnly swear and affirm that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent on me as a delegate to the Assembly of Delegates according to the best of my abilities and understanding, agreeably to the rules and regulations of the Constitution and the laws of the Commonwealth. So help me God. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Congratulations.
I'll call the meeting to order.
And use the microphone.
Good idea. Unfortunately, we'll have a moment of silence to honor our troops who have died in service to our country and all those serving our country in the armed forces. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk will call the roll.
Richard Anderson.
Here.
Cheryl Andrews.
Here.
Ronald Bergstrom.
Here.
Leo Kukunis.
Here.
Ned Hitchcock.
Here.
Christopher Kanega.
Here.
James Killian.
Here.
Marcia King.
Here.
Teresa Martin.
Here.
Suzanne McAuliffe.
Here.
Deborah McCutcheon.
Here.
John Oman. Patrick Princey.
Here.
Anthony Scalise.
Here.
Julia Taylor.
Here.
Madam Speaker, we have a quorum present with 93.42% of the delegates present, 6.58% absent.
Thank you. We will now proceed with the election of a speaker for the next term. Madam Chairman, I nominate Ron Bergstrom. Second. Are there any other nominations? Then we can have a unanimous, do we need a roll call?
No.
Let's see if we have a unanimous vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Good. Ron, congratulations. I will trade places.
And name plaques.
I was worried.
Take that one right there.
I was worried that wasn't his pocketbook.
No, I know Charlotte. I want to get fucking
We will now proceed with the election of a deputy speaker. Do I have any nominations for deputy speaker?
Mr. Speaker, I'll nominate Teresa Martin.
I'll second.
Moved and second. Do we have any other nominations? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
I'm going to abstain, Ron.
okay.
Congratulations.
We will now
Switch seats.
switch seats.
Take a vote first.
Oh, you did?
Did we did
He said all those in
we
favor.
take a vote?
Yes.
We did.
Yeah, we
Oh, we
did.
did, yeah.
If you want to switch, you have to. There was one abstention.
Oh, so fun.
Teresa, don't forget your name tonight.
Slow it down, Ron.
Tom is down there.
He's got to close the nominations first.
So much from loyalty. Goodbye.
They didn't do that for him though either.
No, they didn't. They never do.
That's a good point.
Just move one seat closer. I'll find out you.
Too late.
Okay, now we will move on to the election of a clerk. Do we have nominations for clerk?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to nominate Janice O'Connell.
Okay, do I have a second? Seconded. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor of Janice O'Connell as our clerk for this session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, congratulations. Okay, well, before we go on any further, you'll notice a couple of new faces here. One is Ned Hitchcock, who's our representative now from Yarmouth, from Wellfleet. And also from Yarmouth, we have Suzanne McAuliffe, the other end here, so welcome aboard. Okay, I'll now need a motion to approve the calendar of business.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved in second. Are there any additions or corrections to the calendar? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You should have received a copy of the Journal of December 19, 2012. Is there any additions or corrections to the journal? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the journal say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed? Okay. We now come to communications from the Board of Regional Commissioners. I see two of the commissioners here. Welcome. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Welcome to our new session.
Well, thank you very much, and Happy New Year to each of you. And congratulations to all those who were re-elected and to those who were elected. It's great. So we're off to a new session. We did meet today. This commissioners met today. Sheila is out of the country. She's attending a family wedding, and she'll be back next week. So we have begun the budget discussions and the budget hearings. We began that this morning at 9 o'clock. And we met with the facilities director on facilities planning. As you know, we have a new facilities acting director who is Steve Tebow. Not a hard name to remember if you're a football fan. So, and then you also might want to know that John Morse, who is our IT director, has resigned, and he has moved on to a position with our consulting company, who is Peter Carlson. He's going to be working with his company as a consultant. So we'll be looking for an IT director very soon. And let's see, I'm very pleased to have Leo join us this morning in our budget discussions. Truly, I'm sincerely say that. He offered a lot of very good comments, and that's why last time we did the budget, I did make the offer to any one of you who wants to participate, and many of you did last year with our budget discussions. And I know that's difficult because we're on Wednesday and you meet on Wednesday, and some of you work during the day and it's hard to do. But we find it very interesting to hear comments from you, because you do review that with department heads. At the end of the day, today we had a report from Paul Nitzwicki and Andrew Gottlieb. And we had asked them, or we asked, that they use the term direct. We directed them to give us an end of the year report on where we are with wastewater and what are we as a county going to be offering to the towns come January 1. So December 31st, the tools that Paul Nitzwicki has been talking about, the MVP, the multivariate planner, was loaded on the website and is now available. And there are the other tools that they have are also on the website now, so you can take advantage of those. But they gave us a very thorough final report for the year with a lot of recommendations as to how we can go forward, particularly in the area of funding. And we heard this today, but it was on the agenda as a report. And so we put it back on the agenda for next week in order to take a vote on it, and also to set up 2 public forums to obtain public comment on the recommendations in this report. So we expect that we would have those public forums, maybe one towards the end of January and another one sometime before the middle of February. So I would encourage you, if you have time on your agenda at your next meeting, that you might invite them to come and give you the presentation. It's really, really good, and it kind of lays out for us as a county government, which includes you, as to how we are really going to respond in the future over the next few years, where the funding may come from, what the possibilities are. And so anyway, it's a very good report. So I'm not going to give it to you today, but, and that's, Bill, did you want to say something?
I know that humility prevented you from announcing that you are continuing as our chair for next year, but you should know that.
Congratulations. Do we have any questions for the commissioners from the assembly? Yes, Leo.
I was at the meeting, and I do know you guys discussed the open meeting law violation. I think maybe you might want to touch upon that to update everybody here with, because I'm sure they're all just chomping at the bit to find out.
I thought maybe you would, Leo.
If you want me to, I will.
Yes, why don't you?
So, well, again, at the meeting, it was agended that the commissioners were going to talk about the ordinance 1209 in regarding to the strictly and only trying to keep the discussion to the open meeting law complaints. I understand there were 2 complaints filed.
Leo, can I interrupt
Sure.
you just because I decided to start out the season being a stickler for protocol, and since this is communications from the Board of County Commissioners.
Well,
I have
can
to
you please do it
I
then?
can do it.
Thank you.
We had on our agenda today the topic of the complaints that were filed against the county commissioners regarding the open meeting law. Under the open meeting law, any public body has 14 days to take any remedial action, and today was the 14th day. And so we discussed the complaints, and they were found to be valid, that we did not appropriately notice on our agenda a discussion or a vote on the ordinance 12-09. That's correct number? It was 06 originally, but it ended up as 1209, I think. And I explained, which any of you who read the Cape Cod Times probably have already heard the whole long story of how it happened, and unless you really want to hear it, I'll just move on. It was signed, it was discussed during the meeting, for which Bill and I were present. And then Bill had to leave, he had a compact meeting, so we adjourned the meeting, and then Sheila came after the meeting had adjourned. And then we realized that the letter was not the letter that we intended. And so we asked Mark to rewrite it. It was a letter of approval, and we had asked him to write a letter of disapproval. And so one part of all of this is that we have followed, at least I have in the 4 years I've been there, many of the practices that commissioners prior to us have followed, which is there have not been votes on ordinances. They've been part of the summary of actions, and they are simply voted as one item of many. And they've never been actually singled out and put on the agenda. We pretty much followed that. But in the interim, the open meeting law changed. And those practices that we have been following all those years that previous commissioners had really aren't as open and consistent as they should be. So we are taking remedial action, and we are voting on that next week at our regular meeting. We are going to vote the protocols for how we handle ordinances. And basically, what that includes is that they will be an agenda item, and they will be specifically stated on the agenda, so it's clear what it is that we are discussing. And they will be up for a discussion and a vote, whether it's an approval or a disapproval. It won't be just a matter of a signature. And that's basically the thrust of what the protocol will be. And the open meeting law allows a public body to take remedial action in that 14-day period. So we voted to take remedial action today. And then because the draft was not part of the agenda, we are going to take that up next Monday, vote the draft protocol, next Wednesday, vote the draft protocol and make it permanent, and you'll receive a copy of that protocol.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Anybody else would like to talk to? Yes, Cheryl?
First, Mary Pat, thank you for your update about the open meeting law. As someone who's dealt with it, and most of us are certainly trying to keep up with all of it, your explanation that you just gave gives me more confidence than I've had in the last 2 years that you folks are going to make some changes so that we really stay as transparent as possible. I think it serves all of us, and I really think it serves the county commissioners to be more that way, even under fire, which you certainly have been, and we have been at times, but when you do that, it engenders trust. And if we don't have trust, then I think we have nothing. So I really appreciate your comments today, and I look forward to not having to have us discuss too much more of this. So anyway, thank you.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to thank you for that. I appreciate that.
I actually just have a couple quick questions. One, you mentioned the end of the year report from Andy Gottlieb and Paul Ninswicki. Is that available online?
It will be tonight. It will be posted on the
web?
website.
Okay, super.
But I have a hard copy here.
Okay. Second question, I raised this, I think it was last year, the town services report. Will you folks be generating one in January? I have to write my report for our town report, and I just didn't know if it was available yet.
There's two different reports. There have been two different reports in the past. One has been the one that makes up the the so-called annual report, the booklet. The town services report that you're talking about is the one that we used to go with, that we went around to communicate to the people. I think we asked for that, but I'm not sure whether or not it's in production.
No, that's a calendar year, if I'm not mistaken, report, rather than a fiscal year report.
Right, that's right.
So, and because as I recall, we usually start meeting with the town sometime in the spring, normally. So I'll have to inquire, and I will do that. So I'm not.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Some of us, I guess depends on each town in terms of when their town meeting is. But for our town meeting's in April, so the annual report goes to print, and they will be looking for reports from all of us. And generally the deadline they give us is about the third week in January. Now, I can certainly write a report as a delegate. But there's not really a space in that report that talks, you have your Cape Cod commissioner that could write one. But if there was anything in there that you wanted me to put in the report, or anything you want me to send in, let me know. Because for me personally, it was very helpful to have that, because it breaks it out town by town. And I think we're all agreeing that we want to have county government more relevant in people's lives, and that's one of the first ways you do it, is to really look and see what's going on. So.
I'll inquire about that tomorrow and let you know.
Okay,
thank you. The last question I have. I was actually reading the charter this week and saw something. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm new, and I know you kind of are too, so maybe this, I don't know historically whether you've done this, but the charter actually says that annually, at the first regular business meeting of the Assembly, the Board of Regional Commissioners shall in person or in writing submit to the Assembly a report on the state of the Cape Cod regional government, including an indication of such plans and proposals for changes in Cape Cod regional government programs and services as the commissioners intend to propose during the ensuing year. And I know, I saw you on TV last night, so I know you've been talking about your goal setting. So my question is, are we going to get that report? Is that something you've talked about doing?
I think it's fiscal year. I think it's part of the budget process.
Well, I've done a read of the charter through about 3 times in the last month, from beginning to end, both for the Assembly and the Commissioners, just so I really understand. And I recall reading exactly that. And I thought that is something we have not done at all since I've been a commissioner, but we should. And I'll take that up with Mark and see what is, usually we are, when the charters makes certain requirements, sometimes they are absolute requirements. Like today, we were hoping to postpone our reorganization to next week when we had a full board of commissioners present. But we learned from council that that the reorg is a requirement in the charter, and we had to reorganize today. So I will find out if that is an absolute requirement that needs to be done on that date. And if so, then we'll have to take some action to make that happen. It won't happen obviously today. But I saw that and I thought that's a really good thing to do. But I know sometimes Mark does that at the end of the fiscal year as opposed to the beginning in the middle of a fiscal year.
The question is, and I, you know, Cheryl's got one on me because I didn't notice that. Of course, I was on the Charter Commission along with several of us. But the question then is, if you're going to submit a proposal as to what you're going to do over the next year, you don't know until you're actually sworn in who the commissioners are going to. In other words, you don't really sit as a commissioner. It could be two other people in the place of you and Sheila. So it wouldn't be any time to do that. So I think that's an imperfection that we're going to have to deal with. I mean,
and the middle of a fiscal year doesn't make any sense.
The other thing I'd like to mention to the delegates and to the commissioners, but also is that in this regular agenda item of the communications from the Board of Regional Commissioners is pretty much what it states. They're going to tell us what they're doing. We may ask them questions on county business. But the thing we have to avoid, and this has been a problem in the past, not so much in this last session, but in previous sessions, is you have to avoid getting into a debate over issues with the commissioners. In other words, you can see they can give us, say, the wastewater report is out, but if we start criticizing the report or saying we would have done something else, that's really an agenda item. And the rules have changed, as you know, within the last 2 years, so you have to be careful that we don't bring up anything that's not particularly on the agenda. So that's something we have to look at. Leo?
Well, with that then, I'm pleased to say that my comments will not be up for the debate, but they're just up directly to the county commissioners. Going back to the charter, it does specifically state that any ordinance, resolution, or vote of the assembly be enacted on by the commissioners. And it gives a number of days to do that. And it says after those days have gone by, it shall be deemed in effect. So with that said, there are a couple of outstanding resolutions that I would like to know when the commissioners are going to act on them, specifically Resolution 12-06, and I believe it's 12-07. So I would hope that you would look at those and act on them because they are now, as per our charter, in effect. Thanks.
Is there anything else? Yes, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Commissioner, I received a report last year about a feasibility study about regional dispatch. Do you know where that stands? Is that something the county is taking a serious look at? My town is planning on meeting with the sheriff's office tomorrow to discuss that, and I'd like to be able to update them on where the county stands.
The county is very supportive to the plan that has been put together by the Regional Emergency Planning Group headed by Sean O'Brien, and he has made presentations around the Cape. I can always speak for Falmouth because he made the presentation there to the Board of Selectmen, and the request was that each of the selectmen in the towns, if they are willing to write a letter of attestation supporting the proposal to Department of Public Safety and Public Health for the funding to create this 911 dispatch center on the Cape. And I think about 8 towns now have responded very positively to that. So that project is moving forward. They are planning to apply for the funding for 911 dispatch. The sheriff has been working with them all along. He's been attending the meetings. He continues to attend the meetings. I don't know if he's going to be there at your meeting tomorrow night, but he was there and made his presentation to the Falmouth Selectmen as well as the 911 group and the chiefs, the police chiefs who are part of that. The big issue was getting the police departments on board because fire usually was supportive to a 911 dispatch, but police chiefs didn't want any part of it. Now, the police chief on the Cape it's my understanding that all of the police chiefs are in support of a 911 dispatch, which is very unusual. And so now the sheriff has determined that he wants to go on his own, that he does not want to support what the county is doing. He wants to file his own proposal and extend the services that he has now, expand the services. I believe he even wants to have a new building because the one he has now wouldn't be large enough. And so I think he's going his own direction. But the fire chiefs and the police chiefs on the Cape and the county commissioners and the emergency planning group are moving forward to have a 911 regional dispatch center. Some of the reason, well, you'll find out when they come and talk to you, but most of the reasons that the police and fire chiefs give is that they want some level of control over how this works, because they know the local issues, they understand them very well. When problems occur at the local level, they're in an excellent position to be able to deal with them, and they don't believe that the sheriff, well, they would not have any control over the 911 dispatch if it went to the sheriff. He would have total control. The other concern they have is that his funding comes through the state, and sometimes that's not always guaranteed. You know that in times past where the sheriff has not gotten the money he needs to run his operation, and he has to go back in the spring for supplemental funding, you know, from the governor, and that gets into the politics of things. If this were to take place at the local level, at the county, there would be a governance committee that would be made up of probably a county commissioner, some police chiefs, some fire chiefs on the Cape, and they would actually provide the oversight of the operation of the center. Secondly, the funding would come through a funding formula that would come from the towns. Because over time, they believe that the cost to the towns would be considerably reduced by having a 911 dispatch for the whole county. Maybe not initially, but particularly in terms of the cost of equipment. If every single town, police and fire, has to buy all their individual equipment, they have to maintain it, they have to replace it, you know, they have to repair it and all of that. If it were all in one place, that would provide rather significant savings, but it won't happen for a couple of years. But there would be some assessments made to the towns. And the towns seem, from at least the 8 towns, the selectmen who have signed on, seem very willing and understanding to pursue that with the 911 dispatch. So that's where it stands. So the sheriff is moving on his path, and the emergency planning group, or the police and fire, are countywide, are moving on their path.
So there currently isn't a timetable or a budget in place?
Well, there is a timetable in terms of applying for the grant. And I think that's March. It has to be into the state by, is it March? I would think it's March, but I know it's very early in the spring. That's the timetable. Now, when it will happen, it will be a significant transition time in terms of making this happen. It doesn't happen all at once. It will probably take 5 years over the long haul to make it happen, both in police and fire. You know, I'm really kind of speaking from third hand from what I've heard several times, and I've been at some of the meetings. The Cape Cod delegation, Senator Wolf, the state representatives, they are very supportive to this, and they're very willing to support any need for legislation to enable this to happen at the county level. They went out and visited a 911 dispatch center in, I think, Onondaga County in upstate New York. It's near Syracuse. And the sheriff went up with them, and I don't know, there were 5 or 6 chiefs, police, fire, the sheriff, Sean O'Brien, and others. And they were just overwhelmed by how efficient and effective the system was, and how they were just able to deal with the calls, with the equipment that they had, getting the responses out. And they couldn't have been more pleased with how this operated so effectively in that county. Now, obviously, that county has, unlike our county, they have public safety departments that report to county management, and we don't. And I mean, police and fire would never report to us. They would always retain their municipal status. but that doesn't mean that they can't function effectively in a 911 dispatch.
So, to just back up, you're planning on applying for the grant?
Yes.
Sometime early this year?
Oh, yes, the county is, yes, is going to apply for the grant.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Pat, is that that grant to set up the system, but is it an ongoing funding source for the system?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know the details of the
But
grant.
if, so I'm
The
just,
grant is to design and build it.
right, so I'm just looking at, is that from an ongoing basis, if the sheriff is anticipating that his operating of this system will be part of his budget, which is approved by the state, is that right? Is the sheriff's budget approved?
Well, he will have to have money for construction,
Right.
either adding on to the building he has, or he has some other area on the base that might be more useful to him if he built new. You know, the towns of Hingham, Hull, Norwell, and Hanover, Hull, Hingham, Norwell, 3 H's, and another one, which I think is Norwell. They did a regional dispatch center there about 2 years ago. We went to the regionalization conference at Holy Cross College. We've been going for the last 3 years now. And I went to the presentation on that 911 dispatch center, not this past year, but the year before. And the town manager from Norwell was the lead on the project. And he spoke how they were able to put this together, and they got $6 million in funding from public safety. They built this whole 911 dispatch center that services all the 4 towns. It's large enough if other towns on the South Shore want to join. There is space in the system to allow others to come in. The dispatchers that each of the towns had, as it worked out, they built a new building. I don't remember where it is. But the staffing for that, those who were working in those towns, because they're smaller and they don't have as many dispatchers as larger towns do, they were able to fill the positions in the dispatch center. So people didn't lose their jobs. But there was the consolidation of the dispatch, and it's
I'm just looking at it. I'm just trying to determine from a budgetary standpoint, the operating expenses of this dispatch center, if the county was to get the grant, would be part of the county budget, and we would do the assessing, the operating expenses. Whereas if the sheriff was to operate it, his budget comes directly from the state, which is approved by the legislature.
Yes, but he charges the towns for his service, as you well know. For every ambulance run, there is a fee. And I'm trying to remember what was that I recently saw in the town budget for that. Your towns have to pay for that service. It's not really paid for by the state. The operation may be I don't want to get into it too detailed, but look in your town budget.
Marcia has a question.
No, I was just going to say, I think the grant is one of the innovation grants from the Commonwealth, which is similar to the e-permitting, is I believe what this is. You don't think it is?
No, I think it's strictly a public safety grant, and they do it, this is where the 4 towns in the South Shore got their money from public safety. It's a combination of Department of Public Safety and Public Health, and some of it has to do with federal law, really has control over the funding for dispatch services like this. It's, there's a lot of support for the county to do this, because it helps to consolidate the services here. Now, it could be built in such a way that there's room for others to join. Let's say maybe the Vineyard or Nantucket might wish to join this. I think they're part of the sheriff right now. But then there are other towns, maybe Marion, Mattapoisett, some of the smaller towns. There would be space for other towns, because you've heard the governor say that we have, 261 dispatch centers in the state, something like that. And he's looking to have 3 or 4. And this could be a regional dispatch center for this area, for the whole lower part of the state, or all the way over to Fall River or whatever. And it's just so costly to operate these centers. That's as much as I can recall from all the discussions that I've had with the group.
I just suggested if you have any information that would be pertinent to this, you know, as far as the application, what the details, you could give us a copy. I'll have the clerk send you a request for any information that you have.
How about if you had John O'Brien come and meet with you and he could present the whole thing?
Okay, actually, we're gonna do that, but what I'm
Yeah.
asking for is that we have something in front of us beforehand, so we
Sure.
don't have to hit them too hard with questions if they're already.
We'll ask him to forward to you.
Forward us.
John, we could have Sean do that.
Yeah, we can have him provide you with the information in advance of his coming and meeting with
Yeah, I
you.
appreciate
And I hope I didn't say anything incorrectly.
that. Okay, is there any other questions for the county commissioners? Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And start off the new year in
Yes, we
a
are.
spirit of cooperation and going forward.
Hooray.
And when are we gonna see your colleague? Is she gonna be here?
She'll be here next
Few minutes.
We'll tell her you missed her.
You can tell her that, Bill. We now move to the presentation from Beth Albert, who's the Director of Health and Human Services, on human service emerging trends and issues for the county. I think she has a PowerPoint for us.
I do, and I set it up earlier. Oh,
There it is.
All right, it's still here. I was a little worried.
You want us to get you a little.
Yeah, you might be able to see it better. It's a little darker. Can you turn on that one light though? I guess I might be able to see.
Beth, is it possible to get it a little bit, I guess, I don't know how to
Where?
describe this to the left.
Like that?
Might
that
be
better?
better if she's sitting on this side. Can you still see it down this end? How about further to the right?
How about if you move it closer to the wall?
No. So I'm sorry, so who can see it?
The people down this end, maybe it needs to come just a little bit further that way. How about now? Is that, well, I guess we're back to where it was, but
Nope.
can everybody see it now?
It's better than it was.
Okay. All right, I guess so.
Okay. Is this on?
Yeah, is the green light on?
No.
Press it. Press the button.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now you're in business.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me time on the agenda today to speak. And I'm here with Christine Stein. Christine is the Senior Project Manager for the Department of Human Services. And we merged two presentations together. And what I'm presenting to you today is Barnstable County Human Services Emerging Trends. And this is based on information we got from our Health and Human Service Advisory Council. In your packets, you were given some information about this presentation, and you're now getting some handouts
Do you have any
for the
more?
data piece.
I need 16.
Everybody, who doesn't have a copy?
Let me see, you'll have one, you'll have one. So, yes. There you go.
Thank you.
Always need 16, thank you.
So for those of you that are new, I just thought I'd do a quick just recap of the mission of the Department of Human Services. We have a two-pronged mission to plan, develop, and implement programs which enhance the overall delivery of human services in the county and promote the health and social well-being of county residents through regional efforts to improve coordination of services. Our primary role, we did some strategic planning last year, and we're focused in 4 areas: behavioral health. We are the convening agency for the regional network to address homelessness. Our other areas, health promotion and aging and disability. Our primary roles is that we connect, help organize, and disseminate information to human service organizations, as well as collect, analyze, and share data on public health indicators and socioeconomic data to towns, human service organizations, and to the general public and residents of the county. And this just is our strategic framework with the 4 primary focus areas. As you can imagine, health and human services is very broad. We're a department of 3, so we really had to do some strategic planning to hone in on 4 areas that we felt, building on work that we had done doing, 4 areas that we could be more honed in on and be more focused. So For those of you that don't know, we have a Health and Human Service Advisory Council. This is a council made up of 27 different networks, organizations, and consortium representing a broad array of health and human services. It was created by the county in 2003, and a major and specific responsibility is to assist the department in prioritizing issues for action by county government. And in your packet and also on the slide, you'll see here's a chart of the 27 different seats that we have on the Health and Human Service Advisory Council. It's very, very broad. We have 2 members of our advisory council here today, Heidi Nelson, who represents the Community Health Network, the network of community health centers, and Human Rights Commission. And we are thankful that they're here supporting us. But you can see it's a very broad range of health and human service organizations, anywhere from the Cape Cod Hunger Network, which is all the food pantries, to, like I said, the Community Health Center Network, which are all the community health centers. The Councils on Aging serving together, those are all of the town councils on aging working together as a group now, and we have a seat for them on the advisory council, whereas we used to have regional seats for the councils on aging. So what I'm going to present to you today is in the fall of 2011 and early 2012, the advisory council undertook a strategic review of its purpose, function, and structure. And one of the primary purposes of the advisory council is to inform local government, county government about health and human service needs in the county. So in order to meet this responsibility, a government liaison committee was formed, and in August of this year, we developed and issued a questionnaire to all 27 of our advisory council representatives, soliciting feedback on emerging trends, needs, and policies, primarily with the purpose of coming to the county commissioners and the Assembly of Delegates and other local elected officials to give them the state of human services in the county. This isn't something that we have done on a regular basis. I know I've been before you, this body before, to talk about specific issues, but this, I think, is the first time I've been before you talking about just what the issues are in the county. So we had really good participation. I mean, 19 of the 27 groups responded to the questionnaire or provided verbal feedback. So what I'm going to just go over with you quickly, you do have a compilation of all the responses in your packet, but I just want to pull out some common themes that will give you an idea of the things that the Health and Human Service Advisory County representatives identified as emerging trends. So the common themes were the majority of the respondents reported an increase in demand for services, while funding for programs remained stable or decreased. So people, the majority, an increase in demand for services. Not surprising given the economy. In addition to an increase in demand for services, it was also reported that greater amounts of assistance are being requested, and there was a greater reliance over long periods of time. The lack of affordable housing and barriers to accessing mental health services as well as transportation were continued to be identified as serious issues for the people being served by Health and Human Service agencies in the county. Another common theme is that representatives on the advisory council reported an increase in clients presenting with very complex behavioral health issues. And when I say behavioral health, I'm talking about mental health and substance abuse. And this trend was reported by several organizations, including Elder Services, the Wampanoags, Archana, the Councils on Aging, and Falmouth Service Center. So you're talking about a lot of different demographic groups being served by these service providers, all reporting the same type of issues, these complex behavioral health issues. It's also reported more people using the community health centers. 40,000 people, or about 1/5 of the year-round permanent population on the Cape, use one of the 4 community health centers that we have. Demographics are impacting service delivery as more baby boomers and older adults are seeking services. It was reported by several groups that technology and information overload are barriers to older adults accessing services. This is something that we're going to be taking a closer look at. And one of the other things noted regarding the demographics is the shift in emphasis by the federal and state governments from shifting focus from institutional care to community-based long-term care options. One of the groups that was not mentioned on my slides, but that was noted particularly, it was brought up by Film of Human Services, is their concern about young adults 18 to 26. They reported that they see them as being at high risk for homelessness and behavioral health issues. And that actually is something the department is looking at more closely. Christine is actually in the midst of doing a countywide behavioral health landscape, looking at behavioral health landscape. And at some point in the next 3 to 6, we'd like to come back and share the results of that behavioral health landscape project with you. We also asked advisory council members to report on some funding changes that they've seen over the previous 12 to 24 months, including impacts that funding has on their staffing and programs. In general, the majority of advisory council representatives, and again, these aren't just 27 organizations, they're representing lots of health and human service organizations across the Cape. They reported level or slight decreases in federal and state funding and charitable giving. Town support varied. We had some people reporting a decrease in town funding, others supporting, others receiving an increase, other programs receiving an increase in some of the town funding for human service programs. One trend reported by the Hunger Network, which is the network of food pantries, is that they saw private foundations were giving larger percentages of their funds to basic services such as food, which led then to a decrease in philanthropy for other areas such as the arts or the environment. So that was something that they identified as seeing that there was conscious decisions being made by fundraiser or charitable foundations to give to basic human services. So almost all of the respondents reported that their funding comes from a variety of sources. So our human service organizations on the Cape received federal, state, local, private foundation, charitable giving, and also raised money through fundraising. And one of the things I noted in looking through all of the responses was that there seems to be tremendous resiliency and creativity among the human service providers, and that they really strive to be flexible in filling gaps in funding. And so there were quite a few who reported on fundraising efforts that they undertook to fill gaps. Some bright spots, the community health centers received an influx of federal dollars for infrastructure and to expand their capacity. So within the past 12 to 24 months, the community health center in Mashpee expanded. Duffy moved into a new location. Harbor Health, which was formerly the Mid and Upper Cape, is in the process of expanding and moving to a new site. And these expansions will allow for increased capacity for medical, behavioral health, and dental care. And as you can see by one of my previous slides, a fifth of the population is accessing their medical services through community health centers. Indian Health Services and Indian Health Center and services are expanding. Another bright spot was that 3 Cape organizations received some Attorney General funding for foreclosure prevention. And it was notable too, the Council of Churches has a seat on our advisory council, and they noted for the first time in years that they were operating from a substantial deficit as more and more churches were turning to them for housing assistance. I'm going to turn it over to Christine, who's going to present on the socioeconomic data, and then we can take questions and comments. Thank you.
So the data that I'd like to share with you today is a small component of a white paper that we're currently preparing
on the socioeconomic well-being of Cape Cod residents. So all of the data that I share with you today is specific to people who live here most of the time. It's not covering people who live here part of the time, so sort of using the census definition for that. Also, the data I'd like to share with you today, it reinforces what Beth was just saying, that changes in how our population is distributed and the economic well-being of our population is associated with some of the changes in demand that we feel our health and human service organizations are seeing. So I'll go through this for you. So I'm going to start out with some population data. Some of it is going to be nothing new to you, but I think it always helps, with, at least for me, to start with the basics and then build from there. So, you know, we had a very substantial increase in the population of the county from 1970 to 2000. And a lot of the projections, even projections that our department did, indicated that population growth would continue, and it didn't. And we saw the decline in the population from 2000 to 2010. And using the American Community Survey from the US Census, we're still seeing a little bit of a drop-off even as we go into 2011. So next I'd like to share with you where specifically where those changes are occurring. Again, I don't think this is new news for you, but there are two age groups where there's a major drop in the population. The first is under 15. We've lost nearly 8,000 people under the age of 15 between 2000 and 2010, which is nearly a 21% change. Massachusetts also lost young people in that age group, but not nearly to the degree that we did. 15 to 24, there was a slight increase in that age group. But where we see the other decrease is, what makes sense, is in the age group of the parents of the children and youth that have left. So we saw a drop of nearly 15,000 people aged 25 to 44, which is a 27% change in that population. 45 to 54, up a little bit, and then we continue to see the substantial increase in the number of older adults in the county. Again, this change is not nearly as great as had been anticipated, but it is still present. So 55 to 64, which I think is sort of called the baby boomers still, we saw an increase of 10,000 people, nearly a 40% change. Massachusetts did too, so the Cape is not dissimilar that way. Same goes for the population 65 and over. We had a 5% increase in that population, Massachusetts likewise. Again, you know, we had an increase, it wasn't nearly as big as we had anticipated. And for the first time, there was actually a decrease in one age group, and that was the 75 to 84 age group. So, and this is a figure just to show you that some numbers relevant to the 55 and over, 60 and over, 65 and over, 75 and over, and also to indicate what proportion of the population they represent. Obviously, a much larger percent of our population is 55 and over than other counties in Massachusetts, and in fact other counties throughout New England. There was a slight change in race and ethnicity of our population. The change 2000 to 2010, there was a decline of over 9,000 people who reported their race to be white alone. Slight increase in people who reported their race to be black or African American, and nearly a 3,000 increase in people reporting that their race, that they had another race or two or more races. So that would include Native American, Asian American, and people reporting two or more races. We also had an increase in people reporting as Hispanic Latino. There's still some discussion about that, whether that's a real increase in numbers or that more Brazilian people are starting to report as Hispanic Latino, which is indeed a change in the US census, that Brazilian people can indeed report as Hispanic or Latino. It's probably some mixture of both, but we're really not quite sure. Just another note in terms of seeing a slight change in diversity, comparing Barnstable County schools, looking at all the public schools in Barnstable County. We had 11.5% minority population in those schools in 06-07 school year, and it was up to nearly 15% in the 11-12 school year. We don't have 12-13 data yet. So now looking at the economic well-being. So high cost of living is something that we've always known about. Just some data that helps support that. Using the Center for Housing and Policy Paycheck to Paycheck report of 167 U.S. metropolitan area markets for the first quarter of 2012. The town of Barnstable ranked number 22 for the highest for median home price, yet was the third least affordable on an index that looks at the occupations of people in those metropolitan areas and compares it to the cost of home ownership. So we're not a very affordable place to live. 24th highest for median rental cost. A median rental cost was over $1,200 for a 2-bedroom apartment. That led to the town of Barnstable ranking 19th least affordable. Now, I could only report on town of Barnstable here because that's all that was in this report. The other Massachusetts markets in the report were Boston, Cambridge, Pittsfield, Springfield, and Worcester. But the town of Barnstable, it's about 45,000 members of our population, so I did want to include it. That's just a chart that I took from that report. Again, it's demonstrating the annual income needed to afford a median price home, and then looking at incomes of sort of regular workers in the same home ownership market. So that's one source. Another source we have is the Crittenton Women's Union, which is in Boston, and they provide on their website an economic independence calculator. And I went down and I looked through all the towns on the Cape, looking at 2 adult households, 1 preschool child and 1 school-age child. You can put in any combination that you want. I just did it for a 4-person household. For all Cape towns for 2010, it indicated a household income of $64,490 would be needed, and that would require both adults in that household to work full-time, year-round, with an hourly wage of $15.27. And when we know about the seasonality of employment here, that's a tall order for a lot of households. Here's some census data on household income. Here I'm comparing Barnstable County to Massachusetts. So we are significantly lower in terms of median household income, mean household earnings for people who are employed. I think it's about 91,000 members of our population are in the wage market, our earnings. Median earnings for a male working full-time is lower than for Massachusetts. For women, it's about the same. So looking at, to tie this up, looking at some poverty data, I just wanted to share with you first what the gross yearly income is by family size, by 100% of poverty and 200% of poverty. So you can see we're not looking at particularly large household incomes. And then to share with you the proportion of our population over 6 years. Looking at first of all, the number of people, estimate of the number of individuals in poverty in Barnstable County. It's gone from an estimate of 11,000, just over 11,000 in 2006, hitting a high of almost doubling at nearly 24,000 people in 2010, and it's the estimate for 2011 is it's come down a bit. But that's a significant change. And then looking in terms of percentages for what percentage of our population that represents. Again, we're looking at 2006, it was about 5% of our population. 2010, it was 11.3%. 2011, it started to come down again. What we find to be pretty staggering is the children and youth. When we look at 3.4% being in poverty in 2006, and that climbed to nearly 18% in 2010. And again, it's come down a little in 2011. And then another, I just want to go back to this for a second to also remark that our county, the Barnstable County, the change for poverty level from 2006 to 2010 was the highest of any county. The changes for other counties were much less significant. So it was almost from 2006 to 2010, like watching Barnstable County catch up and in fact overtake a number of other counties. And then this is looking at 200% of poverty. I shared this with you because this is a statistic we use a lot when food pantries are applying for grants and trying to estimate. It's very hard for a lot of the smaller food pantries to actually count the number of individuals they serve. They count a lot of the amount of food they provide, but not the individuals they serve. So we use this as an estimate of the number of people in Barnstable County that would be eligible to receive food from the food pantries. And it's over 50,000 people, about 25% of the population. And last, just to share the county unemployment rate, again, looking 2006, this goes up to 2012. I follow the Cape Cod Commission does their comparison in a very similar way, so looking at winter unemployment and summer unemployment. So as you can, it would be obvious, our summer unemployment is much lower. But you can also see that our winter unemployment in 2010 hit almost 14%. And we have some towns, particularly the outer Cape towns, where Provincetown in 2010, I think it approached 40% in January. So I think hopefully through this set of slides, I've helped support some of the feedback that Beth has received from the Health and Human Service Advisory Council. It sort of supports why we have seen some of the changes in needs for health and human services. So the white paper that I'll be finishing this month will have more data in it, but this was just to give you a sample.
Okay, are there any questions for our guests? Yes, Leo.
First of all, thank you very much for doing this, taking those in-depth studies and bringing them down to a couple of pages so that even a dumb farmer can understand them. Thank you. I know it's a lot of time and it's good information. In regards to the population change by race and this, get that one wrong. How is the reporting, I guess this is from the U.S. Census is where you're getting these figures from. Do you feel that the reporting was correct in, I mean, a lot of people just didn't fill out their paperwork either. Do you hold a lot to that particular chart? Do you take into effect maybe, I don't know what I want to call it, a correction factor of people who aren't reporting, especially in the lower income brackets?
So I think that first of all, in terms of comparing year to year, if we can make an assumption that about the same proportion of people fail to report in the census as any other year, I think is helpful to when you're looking year to year. So looking year to year changes. In any particular year, yes, there are going to be people who are not here legally, who, although the census encourages them to report, don't. So in terms of exactly what proportion of the population that is, we don't know. And there have been other attempts by our department in the past to try to estimate that, particularly for the Brazilian people who live here. And it is just, it's so difficult, it would probably create more misinformation than good information. But I think it would be very much worth me putting a footnote on when we do this white paper to indicate that is an issue.
On the economic side of it, poverty chart, I think it's number 2. It looks like it's down, or you projected it to be down. Again, this is U.S. Census survey on 2011. Is any of that attributed to some of the people leaving the Cape, do you think? Or is that, again, something that needs to be judged for what it is? Obviously, I don't think the economy has gotten better, that a substantial amount of people from 2010 to 2011 are doing better. I'm not sure if we can put a footnote in for that, too.
I think I should investigate that a little bit more. I mean, we had a very slight change in population, estimated population 2010 to 2011. So I'm not sure that in of itself would explain the beginning to see a decrease. I think 2010 was just a really bad year. That's what we heard. There was another study I did in 2010 looking at the increase in suicide deaths in Falmouth, and we did a complete 360 looking at factors that might have contributed to that. And I heard time and time again from people who I interviewed, including health and human service providers, that 2010 was just a particularly desperate year. And I can't at this point in narrative explain why it's starting to come back down a little bit, but again, from the qualitative information I have, it doesn't seem quite as desperate.
Just one more, if I may, Mr. Speaker. I think over, maybe I'm dating myself now, it might have been 10 years ago, but the county used to do a human conditions report, I believe. It had some kind of a name like that. And I think at that time we used to do them almost either a yearly basis or every 2-year basis, and then we just suddenly stopped. It might be something that we may want to consider doing, on a 5-year basis, so we can use some of this data as planning, especially when we have available to us the U.S. Census report, trying to maybe using that and then doing it 5 years from now, maybe our own data or something. But I find it very helpful. And thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa?
I just have one question. So I know you mentioned a couple of times that like 20% of the year-round population used for primary care at health center. I was wondering why that's significant and what it might be pointing to. You mentioned a couple of times. I was like,
yeah, well, it is a high percentage of people using community health centers. So that's in and of itself.
I mean, is it an economic question? Is it a
Yeah.
healthcare question?
Why don't we get
No private kids.
You're right.
It approximates the population that's under 200% of poverty. So I'd have to turn to Heidi, but my understanding is the health centers predominantly serve lower income people.
Why don't we get Dr. Andrews' view on this?
Thank you. As dental director for a community health center, at least this year right now, I've certainly learned a lot about how the interplay is between income, insurance, and the community health centers. Fundamentally, the big change has been the state insurance plans. And then the second thing you need to know is that in a rather backwards way, the state 2 or 3 years ago was encouraging all of us in private practice, medically, dentally, all the different health fields you think about, to take state-funded health insurances aboard. And then all of a sudden they said no. This was, 2 years ago? We're all talking about 2010. The state budget was a disaster, so what did? They started cutting different services that were provided particularly for adults and saying to people in private practice, you can't take adults, but they can go to a community health center. So bottom line is the community health centers, by virtue of law and also the federal grant process, are capable of providing services, and that they can't get elsewhere, and they are overwhelmed, absolutely overwhelmed. So what you should be seeing, and I think you are, is that the footprints and just the number of people walking in the door of the clinics, the medical facilities we have, these community health centers on the Cape right now, is it's just going through the roof, and it's not done. Folks are having to wait an awful long time to get an appointment. So I'm just going to, speak to that one because I know about it. It's a huge growth in the healthcare industry right now.
Thank you. Teresa, do you have anything else? While we're on this, yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to spend too much time on the healthcare question, but did you do any comparison as to how much access there is through emergency rooms and neighborhood health centers in Massachusetts as compared to other places? I mean, for example, I know that in Texas, people don't have insurance. They don't have neighborhood clinics, and people there, it's like a third world country. They die of tooth infections. So I'm wondering if you have any comparison.
I don't have it reported out right now, but I can look, I do look at emergency room data, and I look at the kinds of conditions or health issues that people are going to the emergency room for. And that's where we can sort of start to pick up where the Cape differs from other counties in terms of why people are going to the emergency room. Off the top of my head, I cannot recall whether our use of our emergency room usage rate is different compared with other counties or compared with Massachusetts as a whole.
But your work doesn't do any comparison to other states, is that right?
I certainly can do comparison to, yeah.
Yes. I find this fascinating. I really appreciate your doing this this kind of research for us, because I think it really enlightens our discussions about what we're trying to accomplish in the county. So thank you.
Thank you.
You know, while we're on the healthcare discussion, it's been my observation that, and I don't know if you take the statistics, but there's a high percentage of the population of Cape Cod are self-employed. They're either contractors, they're fishermen, they have small businesses, retail businesses, and as a result, they don't always have access to an employer-supplied health care. So in notes in your statistics, you had the income necessary for a family of, let's say, 4 at $60-some-odd thousand. How do you factor in the cost of healthcare? I mean, if they were to buy it out of pocket, I assume it would cost them like $18,000 or something. How do you factor that in when you look at what's necessary to do that?
Well, with the healthcare reform in Massachusetts, self-employed people can get health insurance for a little less than before. I don't have Barnstable County specific data on health insurance. I did in fact request that from the Division of Healthcare Finance and Policy, and they couldn't give it to me by county. But I could try again. But I think definitely, qualitatively, that's a major issue.
The other question I have is as to deal not with these, but with statistics in general. It's tough to get a handle on it because so many things could be related to other things. For instance, the cost of housing on the Cape is high. And,
yes.
And there's a demographic change, you say a slight demographic change. Well, if you look at the example of Provincetown, for instance, a big demographic change over 10 years because year-round residents were supplanted by people who could outbid them for housing, and those people did not necessarily live there. So what happens is you're left with a situation where a family which would normally have access to housing, in other words, who could afford housing in a normal situation, cannot afford it on the Cape, so they go somewhere else. So you're left with the larger percentage of the population who can afford housing. You know what I'm saying? Is there's slight statistical variations due to different kind of. But so did you take into account, or I know it's tough, but the shifting population from year-round to seasonal, simply
yes.
the fact because of the financial.
One of that's not in here but will be in the white paper that we're doing is a look at housing units, and certainly looking town by town at the proportion of housing, the change in the proportion of housing units that have become seasonal use as opposed to year-round resident use.
And
so
one other question while I'm on a roll here is
there's a lot of people who are living in assisted living and nursing homes and so on, situations like that. Have you seen an increase in that population at all, or is that not taken into account?
That is in the U.S. Census is reported as the institutional population in institutions, and I don't believe there was a huge change in that because people are moving in as other people are moving out, so it's a little bit more dependent on the number of Pardon me? Yeah, thank you. It's a little bit more dependent on the number of beds or rooms that are available.
Yeah. Yes.
Just one more question. This white paper is going to be published where?
It's something that we're finishing up in January. We're taking it to our Health and Human Service Advisory Council to have them review it with us before we publish it, but it'll be available on our website.
And on your website?
Yeah.
Good.
And it will have a lot more indicators in it than what I shared with you today.
Well, thank you.
Okay, yeah, Pat?
Just a quick question regarding the Cape and Islands Regional Network to address homelessness. As you know, homelessness is a countywide problem, but it happens to just exist mostly in Hyannis due to the fact that all of the social service agencies are in Hyannis. And I'm just wondering what you're hearing from other towns as you work with this council, as far as what their views are on the homeless situation.
So on the regional network to address homelessness, we do have representatives on the executive committee and the policy board from Homeless Prevention Council, which is the agency that serves the lower outer Cape. And they're reporting increased demand for their services, increased numbers. So they're seeing, it's not just Hyannis, the numbers are in Hyannis. There's been a lot of work in Hyannis to coordinate services, especially for people who are chronically homeless, but the problem exists throughout the Cape. I can't give you specific numbers on what the lower outer Cape is seeing, but Chris Austin from Homeless Prevention Council routinely talks about capacity issues and the work that they do on the lower outer Cape. So we also have on our policy board representatives from Falmouth Human Services and Falmouth Service Center. Again, I can't give you numbers, but they are seeing homeless in their area as well. So it is a more visible problem in Hyannis, and there are greater numbers, but it's also an issue in other towns.
Okay. Did I have a question over here? Yes.
Yes, just a comment. When you do your white paper, I don't know if you do any sort of executive summary, because I think that this information is really crucial, not only for municipal budgets, school budgets, information for residents in towns to have, foundations, and if you have a very heavy, meaty, weighty report, people aren't likely to get into it. Your presentation was excellent, very thorough, but an executive summary of some sort might be something that would be very useful for the delegates to pass on to interested parties, and also would capture someone then maybe to dive into your report. Thank you.
And Julia, did you have a question?
I just wanted to say that Beth came over to Falmouth a couple of weeks ago, just before Christmas, and we were on TV and talked about the new program that the department has started about websites and new places for people to find information in specific areas. So I wanted her to just at least summarize it for you, and also for the TV.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't going to get into it, but I was very fortunate to be on Julia's first show. So we did talk about a new online directories that the department just released. We launched them in November. You can get to them through our website, but they also can be found at found.bchumanservices.net. And these are three very user-friendly compilation of local data around particular areas. One is aging and disability, they coincide with our strategic focus areas. One is around aging and disability, one is around happy, healthy eating, which was a project of our Health and Human Service Advisory Council, and the other is an update to an energy assistance directory that we did a few years ago with a group. In addition, we're working on a housing directory as part of, was one of the regional network to address homelessness. One of our objectives was to produce a compilation of housing resources. That is in the works. We hope to launch that by February. And our last piece, our last directory is going to be around mental health. We're still looking at some different options for that. If you haven't been to the department's website, I would urge you to take a minute just to go check it out. We have worked very hard on really updating and enhancing our website, and we'll be adding, with Christine's work, more and more things along the lines of white papers and executive summaries. We really want to make this data accessible to people as well as the directories. So thank you, Julie.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much.
Can I just make one more comment? That the Health and Human Service Advisory Council would really has taken this charge as far as communicating more effectively, more frequently with you and the county commissioners. So we hope to come back again and do this periodic updates.
Okay, please do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we now go to communications from public officials. Do we have any public officials who should communicate? Communications from members of the public. Yes, I have a member of the public who wishes to speak. You have to identify yourself and make sure the mic is on too.
I'm Elenita Muniz. I'm the coordinator for the Barnstable County Human Rights Commission. And I just wanted to come by and give each of the delegates to the Assembly copies of our new brochure, which was published in November. I would have been here last month, but I was really sick and I didn't think you'd want the journals along with the brochure. We've had it translated into Spanish and Portuguese. I'm working on getting the bugs out of that, and it'll be out for bid. We hope to have it printed in those two languages by March and have that out as well. It's being distributed within the towns by commissioners and by our town representatives. So I just have copies for all of you.
Thank you. Yes, Julia?
Just want to make a comment that I'm really thrilled that Elenita is the new person for the Human Rights Commission, because I've known her for 30 plus years. She worked
Since you were both just little children.
practically children. She had a administrative position at Falmouth Academy for many years, and of course was a great activist on the Lower Cape in all sorts of human rights areas. And so this is going to be a wonderful thing for the county that she's now on board.
Thank you. Well, while we're distributing those, are any other members of the public who wish to speak? Okay, do we have a report from the Assembly will now convene. Do we have a report from the clerk?
Yes, we do. First, I want to apologize for not pointing out what is on the circular table up at the front of the room here. We received it at our last assembly meeting, and in all the hustle and bustle, and I failed to point it out, but we did receive from Mr. Beatty some very nice replica of the Constitution on parchment paper, and so if anybody wants to take a look at it after the meeting, if you can get a chance to do it last time, it's up front. And I also want to point out, some people have noticed, but when you're sitting behind your nameplate, it's difficult to see. You have new nameplates. The white paper is gone, and you actually have real plastic nameplates. Thank you for getting back to me with all your committee assignment priorities. I've passed those along to the speaker, and within the next couple of weeks,
I will communicate probably before the next meeting the committee assignments. Unfortunately, we're not going to have 15 members of the Finance Committee, so some people might be disappointed, but I'll do the best I can to adhere to everyone's wishes.
And lastly, I will be updating the website. I've started to do a little bit, but now that we have a speaker and a deputy speaker, 2 new people, there will be some updates happening on the webpage, so just be a little patient, and it'll be done, I'm sure, within a week. And that's it.
Okay, just for the information for the members of the Assembly, the clerk received a request about a month ago for some communications that were sent to me by a constituent, not my constituent from Chatham, but just somebody who had some comments, and I think some of you got it, was on the wind turbines and so on. Well, a Freedom of Information Act request was, an official one was filed for that information. And the information was very innocent, there was nothing in there, they just wanted to know. But I think everyone should be aware that, and I'm going to try to have someone come in and give us a little bit of an update on what the Freedom of Information Act requires, but any official or unofficial communications that you guys have with each other or with people from the outside is considered public information and can be made, a request can be made for that information. So at some point, we're going to have to all get an update on the open meeting law and the Freedom of Information Act, so that we all know where we stand on that. So, Julia?
Question for you, or rather for Janice. Do we, what's our status with having to take the little test for the open meeting law and ethics, and isn't there supposed to be an update that we're supposed to be doing soon? Are we going to just hear from them by email? Or?
We'll usually hear from them directly
Okay.
by email, and I think we have to do that every 2 years, so.
But nobody's gotten something that I've missed.
And also for the new delegates, you should tell them when the deadline, you have the deadline for the financial disclosure, is that what you have to do?
That's not till May.
That's not till May.
Yeah, that is until May. Statement of financial interest, the deadline
No,
for that.
that's
is
May,
May.
that's June. This is something, that's, I know comes.
All right, is there any other business to be brought before the Assembly?
Leo.
In regards to the lovely gifts that we received, the parchment paper, Bill of Rights, etc., I think it would be proper for us to maybe purchase an inexpensive plastic frame, something like that Cape Cod one that is up there on that wall, so we can actually hang those up. And I don't know if you need funding or a motion to do that, Mr. Speaker, but I think it might be proper to do that.
Sufficient funds to do that.
Okay. Did you want to give us, Leo, do you have anything more to say on the commissioners' meeting that you attended? No? You're all set? Okay. Well, in that case, I need a motion.
To adjourn.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Right.